This is our first robust month-long celebration of Women's History Month. We have over 30 films, feature films and short films, returning favorites, brand new films, and 6 events featuring local and national luminaries, women that are leading the charge in activism, business, empowerment, arts, and culture. Viewers can access the Women's History Month programming through our app, which is available on a number of different platforms that you can watch on your TV, on your computer, on your tablet. What this is a celebration of women in all of their diversity, looking at their successes, their victories, but also focusing on the work that still needs to be done, the challenges that are facing women today.
Welcome to the first week of Milwaukee Film's 2021 Women's History Month program presented by Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin. I am Tiana McLaurin, Community Outreach Coordinator for Black Lens, Milwaukee Film. Our first ever Women's History Month program recognizes that women still face barriers in seeking opportunity and equity, both in the film industry and beyond. Throughout March, we will use our new film programming to celebrate women leaders and filmmakers amplifying their stories. Visit mkefilm.org/WHM for more information and to purchase tickets and passes. Tonight's event features an intimate conversation between Dr. Monique Liston, Chief Strategist and Joyful Militant for Ubuntu Research and Evaluation, and Dr. Yaba Blay about the politics of identity and skin color, the decriminalization of Black hair, and the role of white supremacy in sustaining unequal institutional norms of acceptability. In addition to tonight's conversation, please check out the Women's History Month Shorts program, The Body Politic, Rights, Regulations, and Beauty, particularly short films, Future First and Tangled Roots, which further inform this discussion. Now, Dr. Monique Liston, y'all. She is an unapologetic Black woman that also identifies as a warrior scholar, joyful militant, evaluator, sister, and friend. She is the founder of Ubuntu Research and Evaluation, a professional learning community led by Black women. If global white supremacy hadn't wreaked havoc on her existence, she would probably be a food scientist and a homemaker. Her professional interests include race work, Black-centered education, and critical media studies. She is a proud alum of Howard University and currently resides in her hometown, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Dr. Yaba Blay is a dark-skinned, kinky-haired, first-generation American-born Ghanaian who identifies as Black with a capital B. She is a scholar activist and cultural creative whose scholarship, work, and practice centers on the lived experiences of Black women and girls with a particular interest in body, identity, and beauty politics. Dr. Blay's commentary is featured in A Changing America, 1968 and Beyond, a permanent installation exhibit in the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And she's the author of the award-winning book, One Drop, Shifting the Lens on Race. It's been re-released. Make sure y'all get y'all a copy. Dr. Blay earned a Master's of Arts and PhD in African American Studies with distinction and a graduate certificate in Women's Studies from Temple University. She holds a Master of Education and Counseling Psychology from the University of New Orleans, the former Dan Blue Endowed Chair in Political Science at North Carolina Central University. She has also taught on the faculties of Lee University, Lafayette College, and Drexel University, where she served as a Director of Africana Studies program. Please welcome Dr. Liston and Dr. Blay.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
I'm here. I'm keeping hope alive. How are you?
Doing the same. I'm just trying to be the professional Black girl you've been teaching us to be.
I'm here. I support you.
I am so excited for this conversation, the opportunity to delve deeply into this topic of thinking about hair. I really appreciate Tiana for setting the stage and the tone with the title alone, right? Black Crown, and like what that means, and how it comes to us. And as I'm thinking about opening this conversation, I had to be transparent and vulnerable and just admit, like, I had a whole hair struggle today, a whole real life hair struggle. Like, I got up and was getting dressed and getting ready, and I was like, what am I going to do with my hair? Like, it was like, sort of thing. And, you know, after watching the films and just deeply identifying with like, our hair is a thing. It's a thing in every single circumstance. So I was thinking for us to start off, it might make sense for you if you would be willing to sort of share, like, what's your hair story? What's your journey? What kind of grounds you in thinking about Black hair in this way?
Wow. Yeah, I know that hair is such an important part, a central part, I think, for Black women and girls when we think of the rituals that are involved. For many of us coming up as young girls, whether it's sitting between our mother's knees or sitting at a kitchen table. You know, when I thought of even Professional Black Girl as a series, hair was at the center of that conversation of Black girl hair culture, particularly around my love for beauty supply stores, you know, and my love for beauty supply stores comes from having to be a do-it-yourself hair girl because my mother is Ghanaian, and in Ghana, culturally, all small girls, as they call them, wear their hair very short, shorter than mine, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea is that so as for it to not be a distraction to your education, right? And so the big thing once you graduate from high school is you get to do whatever you want to your hair. This is where we usually see insert first relaxer, you know, insert braids, you know, whatever it is you want to do to your hair. And so as a mother, my mother didn't have experience doing little girls' hair. And I grew up in New Orleans, where there is such a little girl hair culture with beads and barrettes, or as we call them, bowerettes, bows and such. And my mom was trying with her little grocery store rubber bands and little pick out the pack barrettes. You should see my school pictures. It's a thing. But then came the Jerry curl, and it saved my mother's day, right? So had a Jerry curl, went from the Jerry curl to the relaxer, which of course made all my hair fall out. Had the stacks, had the crimps, had all of the Black girl hairstyles. I was trying to be in it because I think it was also important for me, being a first generation girl, to also deliberately want to fit into Black American culture, right? And so how do I lessen the distance between us? Or the questions you might have about my identity and who I am? I connect in the things that we do. So, you know, how we're dressing, how we're dancing. Like, I was that girl. Whatever Black girls were doing, I was doing that too. So the ponytails in the microwave, you know, the crimps, whatever was happening, I was trying to have it too. So a lot for me, that my relationship to my hair, I think, is communal in that way. You know, so on the one hand, there's an identity that's of self, like what I feel like looking like and who I want to be, but also how does that fit into what we're all doing? So I've followed trends for so long that I think the freest that I ever have been on this journey is when I got my first fade. When I first went completely low, sit in a barber's chair, that is the freest I have ever felt, because the only thing you had to deal with was my face. Right? I tend to love a short haircut. I think it does wonders for all of us, not only just for like allowing our beauty to be on display, but also whatever conversation you got to have in the mirror, you're forced to have it. There's nothing to hide behind. Yeah.
Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful. And I like so felt, right, just even in my own story of like, this is my third set of locks, right? Like done been bald, done grown it out, you know, done this, done that. And I'm really connected to, like you said, the girlhood part of it. And I know we didn't mention this, but both of us have chapters in a book that's coming out, Teaching Brilliant Black Girls, and thinking about some of this topic and how it relates to girlhood, right? And like, what does it mean to like try to fit in and belonging, connected to being a girl and, you know, trying to have friends. And you know, from my personal story, I remember distinctly in 6th grade looking at this girl who had beautiful hair. I had a relaxer. I had a relaxer since I was in 2nd grade because that's what my mom, you know, that's what we did. And we were since in 6th grade, she had her hair natural. Her hair was just long and full, and she would wear it in like 3 huge puffs around her head. And I remember distinctly in class being like, her name was Chico, when you gonna get a relaxer, girl? Like, when are you gonna do it? Because like this is like your hair looks childish, right?
You,
Like
you are a hater. You are a hater.
I'm confessing to you, Dr. Blay. I'm confessing, right? But I'm thinking about like even in our own experiences and what you have learned in research, have you come across like, you know, there's an evolution in our thinking here. We didn't all like grow up appreciating this. Some of us like were started out as haters.
Oh, but also like, you know, that mother-daughter and family girl relationship is also important to note, because what choice do you have as a child? Your hair gets done. You don't do your hair, right? So whatever my mother was dealing with was going to be seen on my head. You know, whatever hair politics she was dealing with and addressing was going to manifest on my head. Not until I got grown or got into a position to actually choose was I able to be in control of my hair. So I think there's absolutely a communal nature to these hair politics, you know, because also if we connected historically, you know, to a lot of spaces, but I'm thinking specifically about periods of enslavement and colonization where literally our value was assessed based upon how we looked, and all of these negative things that were being projected onto Black bodies. So how do I demonstrate that I am a good mother? Right? You know, I have one of my very best friends to even in quarantine. Let me tell you something. My loungewear collection has grown over quarantine because I'm going to be very comfortable at home. I have a girlfriend, because of the way that she was raised, her mother did not play that. You get up every day, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, you do your hair, you get dressed. Even if you're sitting at the house, because she's coming out of a space where for her mother's generation, you don't know who's about to show up on the porch. You don't know who's going to come and visit that day. You know, before people were texting and calling and doing all that. If somebody shows up at your house, you can't be looking like yesterday. No. And so again, from a mother's perspective in that context, my child has to look presentable, because that means I am a good parent. So to quarantine, this grown friend of mine gets dressed every day. And I'm like, but you sit in the house, sis. But she's dressed every day. And her children also know that ain't no sleeping in and chilling, you getting dressed to go to online school. So all of that to say I think there's so many, as much as we would like to think that, you know, these are individual choices and decisions, we're all impacted, even generationally speaking, right? By so many of these things. So you asking Chico when she's going to get a relaxer, I'm sure put some in her ear and made her question her beautiful, thick, full hair, you know? Yeah, I think so. I think it's definitely intertwined.
Yeah, very deeply. It makes me think about the short film Blue Magic.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, before we even get into it, when you hear the words Blue Magic,
you already know what it is. You already know. And I wonder, you know, the natural hair movement now, of course, we are all bougie about what products we put in our hair. But let's think about Old Faithful. Blue Magic, pink oil moisturizer, probably all horrible for our hair. But at the time, it worked. It did what we needed to do, because again, historically, what were our ancestors able to use to moisturize their hair? They're using axle grease. They're using cooking oil. They're using whatever they have access to, which is how Madam C.J. Walker even becomes the millionaire and the icon that she did, because she made products. No one had ever thought to make products specifically for Black hair, right? So we can talk what we want to talk about Blue Magic in this moment, but Blue Magic has done saved some hair.
Okay, and Blue Magic knew the game, because now they have a coconut oil version.
Upgrade, natural style.
Right. But in that film, it definitely is like you see the intergenerational conversation happening, because you have this young woman who's like, my hair is strong and powerful, and her mom. But two of the points you make up also show up in the film. Because one, I'm not letting you go out the house with your hair like that. And then two, you have sis talking about, we gonna get you a rebel.
Yeah, look how long it would be. Look how right? It's always that stretch factor. Let me see how long my hair would be if I got a relaxer. I wanted more of the film, because I was like, oh, I know she's not gonna let her sister put a relaxer in her hair when her mama said no. Like, I wanted to see what that was gonna end up being, because her mother was very clear about that. But I think it was also beautiful to see even that moment of them bonding, you know, when her mother was doing her hair. That's why I love the first film, the Future First film. I thought it was gorgeous, right? Just for us to see all the images of ourselves. And again, just how much of a culture we have around Black hair that I don't know that we all appreciate. Because I think in a lot of ways we talk about hair like it's a problem to be solved or something to fix, right? Without celebrating as it is.
And that's like, you know, I'm a whole 35 years old and I'm still waking up in the morning like, what am I gonna do with this thing, right? That's on my head. How do I handle or manage it? Yeah, it's a task. It's a task. And you know, last week I actually wrote a love letter to my hair.
Oh wow.
I wrote a love letter because I have been in the practice of writing love letters to Black women. And I was like, you know what? There's a aspect of Black womanhood that I've been ignoring and just like dragging along. And why, instead of dragging along, why don't I write a love letter? Because my hair's been showing up for me this whole time.
Okay.
Just here, present, growing, flourishing. Even when I'm like, wrap that shit up, sis.
Right.
But like the journey of, there's so many different kind of journeys. I don't want to like say that there's one journey, but like thinking about the journeys that people are going through around their hair in real time, right? Yeah. Like as we are just trying to show up and get PhDs or go to work or mother, and you're still dealing with like this journey, right? So like, I wonder if you could speak to sort of like some of the feelings that come out when people are living their lives, trying to show up as like humans, and then also like engaging this journey of like, what's this? How do I relate?
It's why we now even refer to it as a natural hair movement. Mm-hmm. It's why there are so many pages and blogs and communities, right? Because we need that support, which is so telling. Like it makes me also think of conversations I've had around the Crown Act, you know, the fact that we have to talk about natural hair as if we're being somehow radical when in really we are just allowing our hair to be free in a particular way. And that's the thing, for real, like natural to what degree, right? Like, are we bungle rastas? No, you know, we're not letting the hair grow and do what it wants and leaving it be. We're still attempting to manipulate and fashion the hair so that it looks whatever presentable is, whatever beautiful is, right? We're still having to do things with it. But because the norm has been situated for so long, again, if we're using white female bodies as a comparison point, right? And our beauty is being measured according to what their bodies represent. And so our hair doesn't grow naturally down, it grows out. And so that's how it comes to be a thing that we have to do. It's something that we're always conscious of. You know, part of the reason why I started Professional Black Girl had to do with a level of kind of like, on the one hand, sadness, but also like being agitated and enraged and wanting to do something about it, is because I started teaching at an HBCU. And after my experience teaching at PWIs for so long, I was like, I'm going back home. It's a homecoming. Let's get it. I'm going back to the yard. And it was, and I loved it. But I also recognized some of the simplest conversations I had with some of my Black female students was about their hair, was about their names, was about all of these things that I was going to say they made into issues, but I think they were made into issues for them, right? Things that they had to somehow deal with or address before graduating. So how do I wear my hair to a job interview? You know, if my name is Keisha Danielle, do I put K Danielle on my resume? Because Keisha just sounds like, you know, how do I code switch and put on my professional voice? And wanting them to somehow still feel affirmed, like we're great, we're magical as we are. That's why everybody's stealing our stuff, right? But we don't get allowed to own it. It only becomes magical when somebody else does it. That can't work.
Ooh, talk about it. Because
I think it's when we start talking about the politics, and when I say the politics of Black hair, for me, that term politics is just to connote that there are negotiations of power at play. Yes. That's why our hair is political, you know, that there are negotiations of power at play. So are women of other backgrounds, racially, culturally, and otherwise, having to address their hair as they think about their future careers? So on the one hand, people try to dismiss hair like it's not that important. It might not be that important for everybody else, but it has been made to be important because it is what do I want to say? It's reflective of our position. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so for it to be a movement, right, for it to now enter legislation.
Yes.
Where are these conversations about inclusion and equity and all of that now? We have to bring our hair into legislation. Who else has to do that? That's what we mean by the politics of hair. These are negotiations of power at play. We don't just get to be.
Yeah. Just like we don't get to be, right? And we're bringing this into the Capitol, the State House, all of that. And they have this piece of legislation, the Crown Act, like you mentioned. Yeah. Would you mind talking a little bit about sort of your relationship to the Crown Act and its evolution? Because I know you were there in the front lines of it in Philadelphia, but thinking about like, even in that moment, it's kind of surreal, right? Like, I can't believe I'm really talking about this with you all. Like, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I had a small part. I agreed to testify, to provide testimony when it was brought up before City Council here in Philadelphia. And again, the Crown Act is a national movement. But I talked about these very things. I brought to folks' attention the fact that we even have to have a conversation should cause a moment for pause, that we are having a conversation in front of City Council about whether or not Black women's hair, and you know what, take that back, because it's not just Black women's hair, right? I think about the intro to one of the films, was it Tangled Roots? That scene where the young wrestler is having his hair cut while on the mat before he can compete. And as a mother, when I first saw that, I was like, it couldn't have been me. Could have been my child. Who? But also, I know that that's me. It may be a lot of other mothers, but there are also so many of us still who, at the end of the day, we want what's best for our children. We want access to success. And so it is hard for us to, I think, see for really what it is, the politics of our hair. Like it becomes, oh, it's just not a big deal. Right? If this is what the people say you need to do so you can wrestle in the match, just cut the hair. It's not a big deal to grow back, right? If this is what the people say you need to do to go to school, just cut. It's just hair. You would never cut a white child's hair on the mat for them to compete. It's not just hair then. You would never tell a little white girl she couldn't come back to school from summer because she dyed her hair another color like you do a little girl who comes back with locks. Right. The fact that we even have to have this conversation means to me, stop talking to me about where we are and how far we've come and any so-called delusion of equality. Right. The fact that we have to put legislation into play for you to leave our children alone, leave their hair alone. Why do you have access to my child's hair on the mat for him to be able to wrestle? And it's no judgment to his parents. Again, I'm just being angry. And looking at the image, like we would have been like, come on, won't be no match today. But for a lot of us, we've been so socialized and conditioned to not see our hair as that big a deal. And beyond hair, think of how many things Black folks have had to negotiate and somehow tell ourselves, just as a way, I think, a defense mechanism, a way to deal with right coping skills with white supremacy. It's not that big a deal. That's just why do they get to tell us what's a big deal and not? Why does the system get to dictate what should be important to us? Like if we recognize beyond race, whatever the box called race is, beyond that, culturally, there's so many things that you know not to touch because you respect other people's culture. At the end of the day, you don't respect Black folks as having a culture. That's what it is. You don't respect us similarly as having a culture. So everything is up for grabs. We should just be ready to go with the flow. assimilate, code switch, whatever it is. But the issue is the system. The issue isn't us.
Mm-hmm.
So on the one hand, I cheer for us. Yes, we've got legislation passed, but to be most honest, it saddens me that we even have to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And the politics are tied up to an economic thing too, right? So thinking about your trips to the beauty supply store and what you learned just in one who owns the beauty supply store, what's available in the beauty supply store, where the beauty supply store is located. Just thinking about like, it's not similarly, because people will be quick to be like, I don't do politics. And it's like, you Black, you exist.
You do. You do politics every day. Living in this world, you do.
Mm-hmm. And just thinking about those connections too, and like mapping onto them, because I think what you said is really important too. It's mapped on, I feel like, in the public discussion, mostly as a Black woman's issue. And we're not talking about or really highlighting the fact that like we're talking about everybody Black in their hair, right? So what do you think is sort of like the gap in that conversation, and like where could we be filling in the gap in that conversation?
Well, I think it's the intersection of white supremacy and patriarchy and capitalism, right? That we somehow feminize beauty issues as a way to disregard them. If you connect them to women, then they're not that important. So here we are, two Black women talking about the politics of Black hair. The films all feature Black women. What about brothers? It's a lot of politics going on with brothers' hair too. And I know that because I had to spend some time in the barbershop, right? And so even though they try to act like, oh, there's a sister here, we're gonna talk differently. Y'all be free. Let's see what y'all. I've learned a lot in barbershops. There's lots of politics behind Black hair. So many conversations that we have around here, so much of the judgment and the shaming around hair. I think particularly around like hair loss, right? Talk about sisters doing all manner of magical things that we do to mask hair loss. Y'all know what's happening in barbershops. Y'all think sisters are magical. Brothers are magical. When it comes to, okay, let's be clear. But we don't have those conversations. It also makes me think about skin color politics as well. It's one of the reasons why, and I have no shame saying this, I didn't appreciate Dark Girls by Bill Duke. Because for as dark as Bill Duke is, he had a lot to teach us about dark boys. Right? That the work has to be done because it becomes so primary to our lived experiences as women, but we leave brothers out of the conversation as if they're not being impacted by these things as well. Brothers are impacted by hair politics. Brothers are impacted by skin color politics, body politics, beauty practices. We leave brothers completely out of the conversation and focus almost exclusively on women. But all of these things are intertwined with white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism, which means we all need to be like thinking critically about our relationship to these systems and those systems' relationship to us.
Yes, yes, all of that. And that just brings me to like the most recent public conversation about this, right? It was around our sister Tessica, right? And like everything that you named came up in that situation. The feeling when we saw this TikTok video, I'm like, okay, but it goes to exactly what you say, like, this is what I got. This is what I'm using. Because here's the end goal is I need my hair to lay down. Like that's period what I need. And there was just a lot of conversation. And it was one of those, we have these conversations every couple months, social media conversations where the things come out and you're like, oh, that's what you think? Oh, that's how you feel? So I wanted to ask you, as observing, and we're still observing sort of the fallout from that conversation, about what you noticed around how people are thinking about the politics of Black hair in real time with real people.
I saw so much stuff around Tessica's situation. People renaming her the Gorilla Glue girl. I tried to stay out of the conversations on public in the public sphere, primarily because I prefer talking than typing. Like you can't get it all outright like how you want to typing. But I think the thing that probably bothered me the most, or how quick people were to go straight to self-hate. Like I cannot, like it grinds my gears. I hate I hate the self-hate response to everything Black women do to our hair, right? Because my thing is this, y'all act like we're supposed to love ourselves. When you don't engage white supremacy, you act like self-love and self-care and self-affirmation is just something that's part of the human experience, which we have to work deliberately towards those things, right? So Black women who relax their hair, and again, if you had caught me 15 years ago when I was a fresh graduate student in African-American studies, when everybody's walking around with their dashikis, okay, we might have had a different conversation. But life has absolutely taught me differently, as well as allowing myself grace. Because I think what also happens for those of us who want to be down, so woke we need to go to sleep, right? We don't give ourselves enough grace in our humanity. So we put all of these pressures on ourselves that what it means to be down is to go to the extreme, right? What natural means is to go to the extreme. But in any case, to see particularly brothers, again, this is the thing, and it's another conversation we got to have about our gender politics. It's so interesting to me how quick brothers are to come out and condemn sisters for what we do to our hair. We don't have that same access. And even if we do, even if we're talking, are you listening? Somehow we are required to listen to what brothers think. Somehow it was a brother who saved Tessica from herself. Somehow it's Bill Duke who's going to teach me, a dark-skinned woman, about what it means. You see what I'm saying here? As if we don't have the capacity to save ourselves if we need saving. And so this automatic jump to, oh, this is how much she hates herself, because look just how sleek she needs her hair. So sleek that she will go all the way to Gorilla Glue to get it. And I'm like, I just feel like there's so much that's left out in here. There's so much we're inserting. Y'all don't know this woman. Y'all don't know this woman. Y'all know what she gave to you by way of her video, but y'all don't know this woman. Mm-hmm. Right. And she's different than, because again, she showed us the product that she wanted to use. Right. Mm-hmm. Somehow we're mad at her for doing the thing. But if we're mad, can we be mad at the people who create the product so it's an option? You see what I'm saying? So similar to like my work on skin bleaching. Mm-hmm. So many folks will talk about women who bleach their skin like, oh my God, I can't believe they've done that. They hate themselves. Why would they do that? You mad at her? What about the people who made the products? Mm-hmm. Why is it an option? Mm-hmm. You can't do something if it's not an option. There's a $1 billion industry. We're not talking about the people who create the product. We're talking about the people who use the product. How that work? Mm-hmm. So I just feel like we have to give ourselves more grace in these conversations, but some conversations we should just stay out of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what you're talking about, it's okay to be silent. Everybody has an analysis that's based on what. Mm-hmm. And again, Black women can't be your target and your shield. You can't dog us one day and then ask us to save the whole community the next. It's too easy to jump on Black women. It's too easy, but it's also too easy for you then to ask and require of us to save us all. How that work? Mm-hmm. That doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have some good comments here. And again, just reminding people that if you want to ask a question or add something, feel free to drop it in the chat. We'll try our best to incorporate, but shouting out, let's be mad at the system and not our reaction to and survival within the system, right? And like people forget that they mamas are Black women too who had to do their hair. like that's a part of this too. Like, do we understand the relationship between that? And even thinking about, what you're saying, it can't be your target and your shield, because this money was raised for Tessica and then it was demands on what she should do with the money, right? so much just like wrapped into how she's supposed to be. And then, I was thinking about people talking about how terrible it would be if she lost her hair, because there's also this like Black women shouldn't have short hair. You got to do everything to keep your hair and do the long thing and like the measurement, just like we were speaking to earlier. And even when I first saw it, like before it did the viral spread, I'm just like, oh, sis, just want to cut that off. Like
I was like, look, the freest I've ever felt was when I had it gone. Again, felt gorgeous. They got all kinds of groups, bald and beautiful. You know what I mean? Good thing you cute, sis. Shave that thing off and start over.
just start over. And that's like the last thing. Like even in like the natural movement, or even in like do what you want, it's like that idea of getting rid of your hair is still like, that's the worst problem. You shouldn't ever go that route. You'll have that ponytail that has this much hair sticking out of it. You're gonna do everything to keep your hair and not take it all the way off. So I'm thinking about like, well, what is that? Like, you can't be mad at me for what I'm doing to it and say I can't get rid of it, right? Like I have to, there's got to be some latitude for me to at least be.
Can we be free in this somehow? Why does everybody have something to say about what we do? Even us to each other, like, can we be free anywhere in this?
Are we looking for that? Look, can I just let me, I already outed myself as a hater in 6th grade. Okay. I continue to be a hater in grad school, right?
Okay.
And I'm gonna be clear, this person probably is still mad at me, and she not wrong. She not wrong for being mad at me.
Okay, what you do?
I was having a conversation, Black grad students sitting around the table thinking they smart. And I was talking and I used the word permies because I was right.
You made that up. That's the thing.
People knew what I meant. So I don't know. I made it up, but people knew what I meant. And I was referring to Black women who straighten their hair, as somebody who was one of those Black women, right? And I said the word permies, and I didn't think any of it. It was flippant, insensitive, inconsiderate, all those things, right? And I remember like finding out that one of the girls at the table had been mad at me about that, rightfully so. Like, who does Monique think she is? She's not for all Black women if she says that, which is true. Like, she wasn't wrong. And I'm just thinking about in the one, there's the, like you said, people go all the way left. Like, you was all the way over here, now you all the way over here. So I'm already having that in my testimony, but also add in the fact, like, I had to learn. Right? Yeah. Like, I had to learn, and I had to be in a space for another Black woman to say, like, you left sis out when you said that. And you wasn't who you said you were in that moment. And so just reflecting on it.
You had to get checked.
I had to. And just like, I know there's a lot of moments in my journey around that, right? And like how that showed up in my life. P.S. I also, for the girl I talked to in 6th grade like that, when I was like 25 or so, I wrote her a public letter, an apology, because I didn't know where she was or anything like that. Found her on Facebook, tagged her in it. We are good. She was like, girl, I don't remember that. Like, what are you?
That was you. That was your demons.
That was me. I had to like just let it out. But I just feel deeply like, because of all of the politics around hair, we can't divorce the politics around hair from the politics around Black womanhood or relationships among Black people, period.
And sometimes it takes going through stuff like that to learn. That's what I'm saying. I've been through all of those same changes, so that's why I'm always, now on the other side of it, there are jokes involved when we meet someone who's newly natural, because we already know what's about to come with that, I think we all have to humble ourselves on that journey and recognize that it is a journey. So just because you got the knowledge now, sis, right, doesn't somehow elevate you to some level of consciousness where you are better than everybody else. Is why I we joke about being woke, right, which is still a beautiful thing, right? It's always a good thing to come into consciousness. But I can see it, particularly as a professor who teaches Black studies, I can always see the moment when the light bulb goes off. And it's coming. You already know they about to be walking around with the autobiography of Malcolm X. They about to be wearing African prints. There might be a name change involved. They go into the poetry sets. Like, it's a process. You got to go through it. But it's when we start judging other people that we have to pull back. Because you're not going to judge your grandmama.
Period.
You're not going to judge, you know what I mean? Like, be easy with that, because that judgment of other people is really not, it is a reflection of you, but your focus really should be on your own self, no? Mm-hmm. Like, what does judging other people ultimately accomplish? What does judging other Black women? And so I think it's important what you said. Like, I can't sit here and say that I am and for Black women and judge some of us for anything. I don't care what we do. Mm-hmm. There's no judgment there. That's a moment for us to be thinking critically, perhaps, about how we got there. Be what's the word? Empathic, maybe. It ain't like I ain't been there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's not like I don't know someone who's been there. Judgment is not going to get us anywhere. Like we can't afford to have all of these, stratifications and beef between us over hair. I think I'm better than somebody because she got a relaxer and a weave and I don't. Is her hair cute? That's what's most important. Is it cute?
Because someone could have argued that I was not doing my best.
That's all. If you're cute and you fly, we good, So, but again, it took time to grow into this place where I know that it serves us no good to be judging one another, based upon how we do our hair or anything else for that matter.
Mm-hmm. So I want to take it to Philly, because I used to live in Philly, and I worked at a charter school in Philadelphia that all the students were Black, every single last one, and the principal was Black. It was a Black woman. She identified as Nigerian American. She also had a short fade. This was cute. And at some point, I worked in operations, so like I handled everything that was not instructional. Like I was at the front desk and like talking to parents, all of that. One day she came in and a mother and a student both had a bonnet on their head. And she said she didn't even engage or ask why they were there. She said, take that bonnet off. Take that bonnet off your head. And she said it to the mother. And I'm sitting there like, like, somebody's mama, like that's the wrong type of thing. But I think it's a part of this conversation of like, one, the judgment, but two, people will walk the conversation all the way there about all the things that with your hair, but then you say something bonnet, they'll be like, oh no. Oh no, you can't.
You said it, I was like, I just had this conversation with my daughter the other day. She came to visit me and she had long locks and she like woke up from a nap and was getting ready to go run an errand, and she still had the bonnet on her head, and she's walking out and I just snatched it. She's like, Mom. I'm like, what? She's like, why did you take the bonnet off? I'm like, well, let's talk about this. What is the bonnet for? It's for protection. Yes. You need to protect your hair as you sleep. Are you asleep? Do you need protection from the headrest of your car? You don't. So we're just gonna leave the bonnet at home, and then you can go, you can go out into the world and handle what you have to handle, that is, again, that's put us all on the carpet for that one. That's something we can talk through. I do think that, I can admit to also feeling some type of way when I see sisters with the bonnets in the world, because I'm like, again, it's for protection, y'all. I know you're trying to hold on to the hairstyle, but again, to self-check is like, what does the bonnet represent? What is it about the bonnet that's like, pricking at me? What is about the bonnet that's making me uncomfortable? And I think perhaps it has to do, and I think people overuse the language of respectability politics, but it's probably some of that. I think of all of the ways the media has projected imagery of Black women in ways that warrant judgment, right? And what they might look like, right? And so a lot of it, perhaps, if it's mothers telling daughters not to walk out the house with their bonnets, or the principal at the time telling them to take that bonnet off, it's about what that bonnet signifies in a public space. You can wear the bonnet around the house all day long, whatever. But it's like the moment you open that door, it's like, where are you going and what are you doing? And I think it maybe has to do with some level of fear or anxiety around what other people might think about you. Right? And your value and how they might then interact with you. Like, again, I think these are all things that unfortunately we concern ourselves with, because it's also very real, right? In terms of how the world sees you and then what they do with your body based upon the assessment they've made. So then I think about George Floyd. Would the police have mishandled him in the way that they did if he were of a lighter complexion and a smaller build? What did his dark skin and big build communicate to them in terms of how much force they thought they had to exert on his body? Would that have been different had he had a do-rag on his head? You know what I mean? Like, and again, this is all just conjecture at this point, but I think these are the kinds of things we're anxious about.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we are putting that on ourselves rather than putting that energy towards the system that needs checking, right? Because other folks can wear whatever the hell they want in the world. Does it warrant that level of mistreatment?
Mm-hmm.
So I think white supremacy has done a number on us.
And we can't let it off the hook.
No.
Like, we can't turn intraracial conversation so deeply inward that we forget, like, there's a system that's anti-Black that we moving within. There was no winning. There was no winning.
Right.
And part of our survival, you're saying, like, this is part of the survival. Me snatching the bonnet off my daughter is a part of me trying to make sure she stays alive, which is my job. And so how do we have a conversation about the reality of it if we're not ready or versed in or knowledgeable on really how white supremacy is shaping these decisions we're making?
And how do we keep white supremacy at the forefront of the conversation? How do we make sure white supremacy takes all of the blame? That's the rub, because we take the blame. We take ownership of a problem that's not ours. We are judging ourselves. We are anxious about what we look like and whether or not we look presentable, when in fact it's like, who's doing the issue is who's doing the judging. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, that's real. That's real.
Mm-hmm. So in thinking about the films, right? The films. So we had Future First, which everybody needs to watch it. Just like play it getting dressed in the morning, because this is like the most beautiful, just Black hair ode to joy that you'll ever watch. And I was reading that it was created in response to the idea of cornrows being called boxer braids. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
So these two girls were like, nah, not quite. This doesn't work. So thinking about the beautiful images that we see of Black hair, thinking about how we see them in TV, movies, and film, what are some of your favorite images of Black women in their hair?
I mean, maybe it's my age. Growing up with Ebony's and Jet magazines, I still love beauty ads. You know, I still love ads for products and such, but I don't know. It's interesting. I think the beautiful thing about this moment with social media is that there's so much creative content, right? And there's so many spaces online that we can see so many, like we don't have to depend on the mainstream anymore. But like when I think of stuff that is, Insecure is mainstream now, right? Mm-hmm. I appreciate Insecure. I love watching Insecure because everybody gonna have their hair done differently every week, right? And that's important to, I think, even the storyline, which keeps it, I think, authentic to Black girls' experiences. You know, I love the imagery. I love, because even beyond just the imagery, for those of you in film, you know that it takes a particular skill to make sure that we're lit properly. You know, the melanin is glistening, we're not looking ashy, that the makeup is a good match. You know what I mean? And I appreciate when folks get it right. So I enjoy lots of things in the social media realm in terms of photographers' work as well as, you know, cinematographers' work as well. Nothing I can think of aside from Insecure in this moment, but yeah.
I do love Insecure, and I'm waiting for them to talk about, at some point they had to go get their hair done, right? Like they're all doing this work and like hair fly and done. And I'm like, y'all acting like Issa waking up every day and doing this.
But remember, do you remember before Insecure was big and it was still a YouTube series? Do you remember? And remember what you were looking like then?
Yes. Yes. That's what I'm like, come on, no, you can't sell us on the fantasy. It takes time to look like this every day. So like,
Issa got money from somewhere, huh?
Okay. Since we're here now, right? So Issa loses her job, loses everything, but her hair was still on point, right? And I feel like that was like an overlooked part of Black womanhood, being in your early 30s and like, what am I doing with my life? Her hair was slayed every day. She never came in with the slick back ponytail. She never did.
No, we never saw a scarf. Well, I think we've seen scarves. I was gonna say we haven't seen a bonnet. But my question, have we ever seen Issa or Molly or any of them in the salon getting their hair done? Did that ever come into the storyline?
Not that I know. I feel like we might have heard Molly say something about her wig or weave, like she was getting or picking it up. But I haven't. There's no scene.
Yeah, I don't see a scene. Yeah, which is interesting. But also, everybody can't do everything, right? And they kept it moving. But yeah, we pick up on things like that, like when they getting their hair done, where you get money from.
Exactly. Well, we have a question. Yay.
Okay.
Do you think mainstream media plays a role in the aversion to bonnets that y'all recently mentioned? I'm thinking of early Hollywood films where so many Black actors were cast as roles as domestic laborers, and a major part of this costuming was for women was a kerchief, etc. And so just curious about that.
I think that's spot on. I think that was probably what I was trying to think through and attach to, that I do think so much of our anxiety around going out in the world with bonnets is exactly what you're talking about. It's the way those images have been projected. But in my mind, I was thinking more of, it's always that one news story, and somehow the newscaster always finds a way to find the one Black person who has the bonnet and the slippers on to ask them about something that happened. And we have so much imagery of that, of I guess who Black women are or how we act in the streets. And we're saying, no, don't go out there because people are going to think you're like that. You know what I mean? And again, that's our own stuff, like trying to create a distance, if not a hierarchy, about who I am and my value comparative to those people that you see on the screen. So no, I think that's spot on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We have another question. What was your reaction when you saw, I think it's Denai Guerrera in Panther?
In love, because it reminded me very specifically of the first time I saw Alec Weck on the cover of a magazine. That was the first time that I'd ever seen a woman who I thought looked like me, my complexion, short hair, on the cover of a magazine. And so I remember how that felt. And so then seeing Black Panther, where it wasn't just Denai Guerrera, it was a whole squad, and they were all fine and they were all beautiful and brown. And I was like, yes, we represent. So, people always say representation matters. And I don't know that we actually sit in those words, but like I was 22 years old before I saw Alec Weck on the cover of a magazine. How different might my self-reflection and self-esteem even been had I seen Black Panther as a child? You know what I'm saying? Like how important it is to see those possibilities of strength and beauty and bald and dark and unapologetic. So yes, I was absolutely in love when I saw it.
It reminds me of one of these pictures from when Barack Obama was in office, and one of his staff members brought his son, a Black staff member brought his Black son into work, and he asked his dad, like, can I touch his hair?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Picture of Obama bringing down this little boy. And I'm like, again, like you said, the gender politics, we don't really bring that into the conversation, but that little boy, that was his question. Like,
you know what? And I projected all kinds of meaning into that, but it felt like the little boy was saying, I'm trying to see if you're the same kind of Black as me. They say you are a Black president, but let me touch that hair and see, do your hair feel like mine? All right, yeah, you Black, you my president.
Come down. Come
here, let me see.
Yes. No, I think that's important too, because I mean, we didn't talk about it, but then there is also this texture thing that we are dealing with. And like, I didn't know, like someone was like, oh, your hair is 4C. And I was like, what? I didn't know. Where's this scale? Is that on my birth certificate? Like, where did we get that?
Have you ever seen the chart that starts from 1A to 4C with people's pictures? Like it starts with a white woman with straight hair all the way down to, brown woman with kinky hair. But my thing is, like, it's so important, I think, that we see the entirety of the chart. For most Black people, we see 3 to 4. And we need to see 1 to 4 to understand how problematic the hierarchy is. Because it is a hierarchy, A. And then if 4C looks like this, I am a 16F. Now, you see what I'm saying? We can't all possibly fit in this box. All of our hair, I mean, it's useful and it's helpful for us to understand, texture and porosity and all these things that will help us better moisturize our hair. but it can also be used in really problematic ways because we talk about 4C like it is the bottom of the barrel. And the goal is to get 4C hair to look like 3A hair, whatever that means. And I don't even know what all of these categorizations mean, right? But even within the natural hair movement, so much of the things that we do to our hair to make it look like a different type is also real.
Yes.
It's still natural, but what you want it to look like, what kind of natural? So there's still, just because we go natural doesn't mean we shed all of those things. At all.
It doesn't, and it's like, it's a false signifying that happens too, right? Because it's like, I didn't change none of my politics. I don't think nothing different. I'm still like a lightly like queerphobic, transphobic, homophobic, and really don't think all Black people can succeed. But you know what I did do? Is I cut my hair off.
I'm natural. You're right. You're right.
So we have like less than 5 minutes left in this conversation. I'm wondering if there's any other thoughts, particularly around either your hair story or hair stories that you've encountered doing your work that you might want to share or think about while we'll maybe get one or two more questions in.
I'm not sure. We
did have two things that did come up in the questions. One, somebody did drop the chart from, it's on Shea Moisture's website. So if anybody's looking at the hair type chart.
Let me see. Oh, it won't open for me. Okay, I'll look at it later.
Yeah, which is interesting too, because the critical awareness of even thinking like if we had 3 and 4, there has to be a 1 and 2. And I wouldn't have even thought about 1 and 2 existing. I would just say, 3 or 4.
Oh, it's color coded. Oh, it's absolutely. We don't get to Black people till you get to 3.
See, here we are. The question was, what were your thoughts on what was publicly done to Blue Ivy and the child in the H&M ad?
Hated it. And I think it exposed so much of our stuff because, again, we idolize Beyonce in such a way that even though we know she's a Black woman, we don't treat her like she's one. So how dare you have a baby that looks Black? Blue Ivy's not supposed to look Black. She's supposed to have blonde, flowing hair like you do. And you're Beyonce. Again, I don't want to overuse it, but the kind of respectability politics that creep in, because B let that baby be free, right? Blue rocked the afro, right? So folks are like, there's judgment there because it's like, Beyonce, you got all this money and all these people, like you can't do this baby's hair. Again, this notion that the baby's hair has to be done. We absolutely over manipulate children's hair for the sake of it looking done. And so what it would mean for it to be done was for it to be braided or put in particular hairstyles. We just had a problem with the way that it looked natural, as much as even natural folks, like, again, this natural hair movement, but like only to a certain degree. Not that kind of natural. Natural with bubbles and beads, but not that kind. That's too natural. Or even the way, again, bring the brothers into the conversation. I don't know if you've seen all the public dialogue around Jay-Z's hair at the moment. The people are confused.
I was going to talk about that. Like, look, somebody said, like, look at how Jay-Z was able to disrupt corporate America with this hair. And it's like, hold on, bro. He's coming in winning at capitalism, which means he has a different set of negotiations. So you're not going to see.
He's not trying to enter a new space. They're not thinking about his hair. But I'm talking about us regular folk on the Twitters and such. Everybody has something to say, can't understand what is he doing.
Won't he just cut his hair?
Yeah. Or even if you know Jay-Z's work ethic and his history, we always knew when he was working on an album because he didn't have a haircut. And he talked about that. He would get a haircut when a new album drops. So if Jay-Z had hair growing, you knew an album was coming. So now we're like, we getting a whole 10 CD.
Box set, bro? Is a box set on the way?
But yeah, so it's, again, so many people have so many things to say, right? But I think it was actually pretty violent, I think, the ways that people addressed Blue Ivy. And that had everything to do with their own disappointment for whatever they thought Beyonce was and who Beyonce represents. what they expected Beyonce to do with her child. And I appreciate that about Beyonce, because Beyonce's like, y'all will never keep up with me. I do what I want. You mad? That's cool. I don't even follow anybody on social media, so it's fine.
I love it. I'm loving that we it is 7:00, so I guess we get to end as any Black girl talk should end with praises of Beyonce. But thank you so much, Dr. Blay, for your time and energy. Shouting out, if you see right behind her, the latest edition of her book, One Drop. I hope you all have a chance to connect with it. And if you want to share your social media or how folks should follow your work.
I just want to say this. I'm looking at Symphony's. Symphony Swan made a comment that is anti-Black. Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important term that we have to say, right? Because we talk around this in a lot of ways. I always throw white supremacy into the equation, but I also think it's equally important to understand how this behavior is anti-Black and how even Black people can be anti-Black, right?
Absolutely.
Social media, my website is yabablay.com, and my social handles are at Yaba Blay.
Thank you. Thank you all for watching. We encourage you to go check out the short films, Future First, Blue Magic, and Tangled Roots. Go to milwaukeefilm.org /WHM, and you can see links for all of those films. Dr. Blay, thank you so much. This was so enjoyable.
Of course, thank you.
This is our first robust month-long celebration of Women's History Month. We have over 30 films, feature films and short films, returning favorites and brand new films, and 6 events featuring local and national luminaries, women that are leading the charge in activism, business, empowerment, arts, and culture. Viewers can access the Women's History Month programming through our app, which is available on a number of different platforms that you can watch on your TV, on your computer, on your tablet. What this is a celebration of women in all of their diversity, looking at their successes, their victories, but also focusing on the work that still needs to be done, the challenges that are facing women today.